Hey, hi, how are
Hi.
you?
Great. How are
Doing,
you?
guys? Good. So I really enjoyed I got to watch 7 episodes
Oh,
of your
great.
show, and I
Well,
really enjoyed where it was going, how it played out. And I'm curious, in the beginning, we get a lot of a clue that you set the show in 2016. Certainly it's a very interesting year. And I've been watching a lot of shows this year about failed business
Yeah.
or business people at the top that kind of take a slide. I'm sure you can think of a lot of
Yeah.
those types of shows. This isn't quite that, but I feel like maybe it has elements of it. It ties into it. It certainly portends sort of a bumpy future. So was that an idea that you had envisioned right from the beginning? Was this time setting built in, or did it come about?
I'm going to be totally honest. The weird reason why we initially talked about 2016 was because the show is about Saw Palmetto Farm to some degree. It's also about snakes and about a lot of other things. But in 2016 or early 2017, the Florida State Legislature in real life passed a law that changed the nature of gathering saw palmetto farms. They were pressured by European pharmaceutical companies. It used to be controlled, an industry that was sort of like unregulated, controlled by a swamp mafia. And as saw palmetto berries became more successful in Europe, these companies sort of pressured the state legislature to change the laws to make it illegal to harvest berries on federal land. This sort of matters in the season. It matters for plans that we have going forward. And we talked about just shifting and being like, who cares about when this actual law was passed? It doesn't really matter. We're breaking the rules of reality in lots of ways in this show. But then we also, as we talked about it, we really liked the idea of the 2016 election being a sort of background element of the whole series, not so much because we want to get like wildly political and make any big statements, but because Donald Trump, as this sort of like businessman, represents, the whole show is about Craig's and a lot of these characters' fantasies about getting rich. And to some degree, Donald Trump represents the epitome of the American dream. He is this guy, this rich guy who's made it and lives in this fabulously wealthy existence that everyone sort of aspires to. And look, to some degree, I feel like he represents also the sort of curdling of the American dream. And there's some stuff.
Well, he's like a false prophet of this religion
Yeah.
of entrepreneurship and success.
And so we really just thought that just having that, we take Craig's dreams of becoming rich seriously, but also having that there in the background was, I thought, sort of evocative in terms of
bonus, no COVID.
Yeah. And then the real thing was we never had to ask a question of should our characters be wearing masks or not, which is a true nightmare about making television now. Is you want your show to be realistic to the time frame, but also you don't want all your actors wearing masks on camera. So we didn't have to think about it.
Well, you also make amazing use of your setting. I don't think a show like this works if it's not, filmed in New Orleans. What was that experience like for you?
New Orleans was great. I mean, it was a while. It
was our first time for both of us filming on location for that much time, certainly. And it was really interesting. It was kind of cool to work with the local crews, and it was really cool to be on location so much. When we were shooting a network show, we would have to do pretty much 3.5 days out of the 5 days of shooting work on a stage, a sound stage, and then 1.5 days out. And this, we were out much more of the time, which lends an authenticity to it, and a really cool visual look.
And I think for the cast, I mean, look, there's a thing about most people live here in Los Angeles and we live here, and there's a tendency to be you leave your house, you go to set, you shoot, you go back home. It feels like a job. And there's something, at least for the writers and the cast, most of whom were flying in, it's you're living it much more thoroughly. It's less of this is your day-to-day job that you're punching in, and it becomes much more of an all-consuming thing. And I think it really led to some pretty strong commitment to the project from the actors that I think shows up on the screen.
I'd like to pick up on that point too, because you talked about working for network, and for NBC, certainly. Now that Peacock is here, which, it didn't exist at the time of your show, It feels like, especially in some of the later episodes, you have the freedom to be able to do these things that wouldn't nearly be possible on network, but still have sort of that, connection to it. So what was that like for you? What's it like to do an episode where it's so self-contained and really feels like open to possibilities?
It was really cool. I mean, it was really an exciting opportunity, and really, it was one of the reasons we wanted to go to Peacock, was because we wanted to have the opportunity to experiment, to try different things, and to be able to push boundaries that we hadn't been able to push before.
And I think also, a really great thing about Peacock is streaming in general is open to lots of stuff. And Peacock, as a pretty, as a pretty new service, it's new in the marketplace of streamers. They don't even have an established, like, this is a Peacock show. It's just sort of defining itself now. But at the time we sold it to them, there weren't Peacock originals there was nothing on the air when we initially sold this to them. So there's real freedom to just be like, it could be anything. Like, we could be the show that defines what a Peacock show is, and that was really, that was really exciting. There's just no box that you're trying to fit yourself into.
It seems like you really also broke the mold with your premiere. It looked like a really interesting event. People, Craig got to DJ. It was really a lot of fun. What was that like for you? And what has the response been like for the show? And what do you think the response is going to be like for the show?
The response has been great. I mean, we've been really gratified to see, comments on Twitter or from people we've shown it to. I mean, you just have no idea. I mean, we felt like it was good and we're very proud of it, but then you put it out in the world, and it will be officially out in the world for us in 3 days. But the response has been really great and really gratifying. And the premiere party was really fun. I was very jet lagged. So for me, it was mostly my body aching and me trying to convince it to stay awake. But Luke might have a better view of the party.
It was very fun. It was really gratifying to see. I mean, look, the thing about making television is just like, it's great. I love TV, and the scope and the reach of it is terrific. But you don't often get the experience of getting to watch your stuff with the crowd the way that you did when you make movies. And, and reading people's comments on Twitter are not the same as like seeing it with an audience and seeing people laugh at your joke. And that is just like, we're responding horror to something terrifying that happened. And that is just really like an unbelievable experience to get to watch it with a crowd.
I'm curious about something else too, because I enjoy it so much, but I don't know quite how to classify it. Do you guys like to say dramedy? I don't think I said like a really, really dark comedy, or maybe just something that lives within its own space. How do you define it?
I think it's a comedy. I would call it a dark comedy / dramedy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a comedy.
It's a comedy.
Our goal is it's a comedy. It's a comedy first and foremost. There's no point at which we wanted it to be
a cramedy.
Yeah, not funny. I mean, I just think it's like, look, to get to the screening thing, one of the great, things is that it you don't have to like, network TV was still like limited by, there's half hours and there's hours, and there's comedies and there's dramas, and there's plenty of shows from the network TV era that broke lots of all sorts of molds, and hours that could be funny and half hours that were dramatic, but you still had this like really clear, you were one or the other. And now, I mean, it's just, even to look at like how they categorize it on the streaming thing, it's no longer like comedies and dramas. It's like half-hour comedies with with weird violent endings is a category, and it's like the world of acceptable genres and how specific you can get is just like is ever expanding, and it doesn't have to be one thing. But again, I will say though, just that we're from a comedy background, and we always wanted the show to be funny. That doesn't mean that scary things don't happen, that sad things don't happen, that really moving things don't happen, but we want audiences to laugh too. That's a big
What
part.
we call it a crappity pop.
Yeah.
A crappity pop.
Yeah.
I like that. I just wanted to say you guys are killing it yourselves. I've
you
enjoyed
so
seeing the
much.
projects you've done into this one, and to see how it breathes, it plays out. And I cannot wait for an audience to the audience on the whole, all dropping at once, I think is really cool. I think
it'll be really interesting. We're excited.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you so much.